Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, and thanks for joining us for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On yesterday's satellite imagery, storm system, second in a series, or one of several, came northward across the area there with the rain and gusty winds breaking out here back behind. Another development down in through here. Otherwise, some dissipating bands of moisture moving into southeast and southern Alaska, clearing through the eastern interior. A lot of clouds, gusty northeast winds southward on those north winds across eastern Bering Sea, bringing the cold air down into that area where those systems are developing, and a front pushing eastward over the western Aleutians, pushing in toward the central areas during the day yesterday. But already you can see it's most of it was shearing off to the southeast. So you had a pretty nice day there across the eastern Aleutians. A little windy though, but today you can see that front pushing eastward. Brought some clouds, maybe a little bit of rain there, mainly to the western areas of the Fox Islands, breaking out behind. A few scattered showers onto the west. And then you can see the next system here, south of the Queen Charlotte's, early this morning at about 4 a.m., moved northward this afternoon quite rapidly. Pretty strong jet stream aloft. That resulted in some pretty strong winds at the surface, as high, well, gusts over 60 miles an hour today in some areas, with gale to storm force winds coming in toward Dixon Entrance, and that pushing northward. Still a band of moisture off the coast there, and a trough right through here. Actually a couple of troughs in here. This one right through this area, the leading edge of the northwest winds, southeast flow aloft, resulting in a sunny day across the Kenai Peninsula up into the Susitna Valley. Mostly clear skies, portions of the southeast interior. A batch of moisture pulled westward with some showers, mostly cutting across southern Prince William Sound, maybe to the western or southern areas of the Prince William Sound there, coming along the North Gulf Coast. Anyway, still a lot of cloudiness, areas of light snow from the Koyukuk Valley, actually from the Yukon Valley, all the way back into toward Kotzebue Sound, but nothing too heavy. Gusty north winds of 25 to 35 miles an hour across St. Lawrence Island today, and very windy up along the Arctic coast. Gales going up there, gusts to 50 miles an hour there on the east side, and gusts as high as 40 miles an hour occurring on the western Arctic coast, all from an east and northeasterly direction. And then this northwest wind diminishing here, a lot less than what you saw yesterday. Picked up a little bit there over Kodiak Island, but that'll be coming down again. Lots of moisture here out over the Bering Sea, and right up back through this area is an Arctic front that's coming southward on those northerly winds, again already kicking up close to 40 miles an hour in gusts around St. Lawrence Island. Back to the Bering Strait, a good thrust of Arctic air will be coming down with an upper level disturbance front right about in this position today, south of the St. Lawrence Island area. A weak low here over the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta areas, more over the Yukon Delta. That's going to be sliding south and southeastward over the next couple of days. This system down here is going to take off to the southeast, as well as the main low back to the west also move off to the southeast, while this low comes northwestward, and that's going to spread some moisture and increasing chances of rain or snow into south central Alaska. So we'll lose the clear skies here tomorrow, or for tomorrow, that we had today. And the front pushing northward here, a wave coming up just west of Sitka this afternoon, and we'll see tonight that will shift on up into northwest Canada, right about this location here. And looks like another front will develop and spread some rain into the southern southeast coast, and could be some small craft advisories along there. Wind-wise, small craft advisories are out through tomorrow, mostly due to the seas, but you could see that 25 to 30 knot wind come back into the southwest coast later on. Increasing rain along the North Gulf Coast. As I said, the slow pulls northwestward. Looking at clouds will be on the increase later tonight with an increasing chance of rain or snow showers. The colder air back here to the west, areas of snow that occurred today over the eastern Kuskokwim Valley, especially on the western slopes of the Alaska Range. That will continue, become a little more widespread and start showing up on the east side of the mountains as well, but dry northwest wind should keep it mostly clear. There will be some variable clouds at Kodiak Island. Most of the shower activity of rain or snow will be mostly to the east. And then this Arctic front driving southward with the gusty north winds again picking up behind it. Areas of snow from about the front northward right up to St. Lawrence Island. And that low dropping down to just west or west-northwest of Cape Newenham after midnight. Again, this low sliding southeastward to that position that's currently pushing across just south of the eastern Aleutians. And this next one moving also to the east-southeast. Otherwise, we've got this area of snow up into the western Chukchi Sea there, and then extending back to the east and northeast. Along the Arctic coast, portions of the North Slope for tonight, gusty winds, continuing gale force winds, gusts 50 miles an hour again. Areas of snow possible here over the northeast interior, as well as variably cloudy over the eastern Tanana Valley, and not too bad off to the west. For tomorrow, that front swinging northward to about this position, also back to the northwest with the chance of rain changing to showers along the coast tomorrow afternoon. Low pressure right over northern Cook Inlet, so more clouds, and again, rain and snow showers on the increase, the chances of, especially back here where some of that colder air slips in through Kamishak Gap, gets into southern Cook Inlet. Look for a chance of snow showers in toward Homer, Seldovia, and a little bit to the north. Areas of snow mainly right through this location, through the interior from the Kuskokwim or the Yukon Delta northeastward, but gusty winds continuing again. Areas of blowing snow possible there anywhere along the Arctic coast or North Slope, but the strongest winds a little bit farther to the west here, and that north to south flow will drive that Arctic front southward across the Pribilofs right on down toward the Aleutians, swinging by the Aleutians probably late tomorrow afternoon with that low center now just in northern Bristol Bay. And then for Tuesday, that front all the way off the map now, leaving behind gusty northwest winds, 30 to 40 miles an hour. You can see gusts of 50 miles an hour, especially tomorrow night for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula areas, but maybe the Alaska Peninsula. Winds a lot lighter as you head northeast there. You can see with the low, very little gradient over Bristol Bay or Kodiak Island, or southern Alaska for that matter, but still quite windy across St. Lawrence Island. Looks like the winds will diminish along the Arctic coast. Still gales possible, but mostly small craft advisories. Heavy icing conditions also up there in the open waters and the marine areas. Otherwise, clearing out here over south central Alaska, mostly sunny weather returns. Just variable cloudiness into the southwest interior and a few flurries up over the north central regions, and mostly dry here over the northwest as well. And a big storm develops, moves northeastward, gales coming back to the south coast of the Panhandle, and good small craft advisories probably even over the inside waters. Clarence Strait and those areas with some more heavy rain pushing in as well. That will be spreading northward throughout the day and beginning to pull back to the west across Yakutat during the afternoon hours, possibly reaching Yakutat, but again, pretty fair here over the interior. Temperatures this afternoon, mid-40s to mid-50s, 54 degrees at Wrangell. They also picked up about half an inch of rain in the last 24 hours, as did Juneau and Annette. Otherwise, 45 at Sitka, 55 there at Yakutat. These are all 4 p.m. readings. 46 Cordova, 40 degrees in Anchorage, and a 44 down at Kenai. Homer had 45. Chulitna, mostly clear skies, 37 degrees, 20 at Gulkana. A milder 32 up at Northway. while the Tanana Valley we'll see in the upper 20s to mid 30s with a 34 at Fairbanks. And Koyukuk Valley, Bettles 31 at Tanana, 10 degrees Anatuvik, teens and 20s for the Arctic coast, and upper 20s here, Kobuk Valley on out to the Seward Peninsula, south side of the peninsula, a little above freezing there at Nome, 31 in McGrath, 24 at Bethel, and a 32 over at St. Mary's. Farther down to the south, Bristol Bay, mid to upper 30s here with a 41 degree reading both at Sandpoint and Cold Bay, 38 at St. Paul, back to 41 at Unalaska, and upper 40s for the Aleutians. Lows tonight anywhere from 0 to 20 along the north slope and Arctic coastal areas, teens and 20s back to the west and northwest with 20s here over the southwest interior. And we'll see in the lower 30s south of the mountains or south central Alaska, teens and 20s for the Tanana Valley, lower 40s north, upper 40s south of the Panhandle, and 30s to lower 40s for the Aleutians. Highs for tomorrow, we'll see in the 40s here, south central Alaska, mid to possibly upper 40s along the North Gulf Coast areas, lower 50s for the southeast coast, otherwise teens and 20s, north slope on out to the Arctic coast. Lower 30s here, Seward Peninsula and the northern Bering. Right around 40 or a little under for the Pribilofs. Lower 40s, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, milder out to the west. Flying weather, IFR, again, all that cold air coming southward, a lot of moisture with it. So big batch IFR coming down from the north. And maybe a break here behind that front, but that won't be until late in the afternoon. It'll be probably socked in with IFR all along the Alaska Peninsula on out to the eastern Aleutians. Some of this will slip on inland here. Upper level low pressure helping to develop that along the Alaska Range back to the west-southwest. And moisture here could result in some IFR. Again, western Prince William Sound on down the east side of the Kenai Peninsula. And with that front coming northward, look for a band of IFR with that, mostly from Cordova eastward into the northern Panhandle. Areas IFR up there over the eastern interior, and of course the Arctic coast and north slope with the lowest conditions. Eastern Arctic coast and up against the Brooks Range here on the west central north slope. For passes, lowest conditions again tomorrow, both for Anatuvik and Adigan will be on the northern approaches, northern entrance, IFR, and for the, there we go, Lake Clark and Merrill, excuse me, marginal VFR becoming IFR, trending down throughout the day. West, or for rainy, starting out VFR, possibly becoming IFR in the afternoon. And then for windy, should stay VFR for the most part through the entire day, the way it looks at right now. For Isabel and Mentasta, lowest conditions, possibly marginal VFR, possibly on those northern entrances. And for Tanita, VFR becoming marginal in the afternoon. Portage, IFR, pretty good forecast for that pass. And for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR could become IFR at times. And then moving on to the freezing levels, lots of cold air coming southward here. Again, that upper level low is going to drop right down into the southeast Bering and Bristol Bay. So it's going to drive cold air southward, push that front south of the Aleutians with at the surface tomorrow morning coming down south of the Pribilofs right along the coast. Still up, we still have southeast flow aloft continuing here from the Gulf. So that's going to keep it milder over south central Alaska and along the southeast coast. The icing threats, not too bad, maybe about 1,500 feet here. Southern Bering Sea with the moisture coming southward to the Alaska Peninsula over to about Unalaska and Nikolsky. Areas of here along the North Gulf Coast could become a little more widespread, again with associated and in advance of that trough swinging up from the Gulf. Winds aloft, again, here's that upper low that's going to be coming southward to about this position tomorrow. And northwest winds 50 knots, that's keeping the jet down to the south. So one branch still coming up toward the Panhandle tomorrow, that associated with that trough that'll be swinging in, stronger jet to the south at 9,000 feet. Again, still looking at south and southeast flow coming into the southeast interior, up to 30 knots there. I have a band of pretty gusty winds right through this location. It drops off and then picks up again along the Arctic coast. Strong northwesterlies, northnorthwesterlies through the central Bering Sea, swinging down towards Nikolsky on over to about Amchitka. Same pattern at 3,000 feet, up to 50 knots, 40 to 50 knots along the Arctic coast. And then southerlies, but a lot lighter here but picking up. That's a storm that will be rolling on up on Tuesday. Turbulence-wise, occasional moderate chop, pretty possible here in the turquoise shaded area. Eastern Aleutians right up through the Bering Strait or to the west of the Bering Strait and then back across the Arctic coast and possibly south of the Berks Range. After the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
The following program is brought to you by the Ocean Alaska Science and Learning Center, a partnership dedicated to understanding and preserving the marine ecosystem connecting Alaska's national parks through research and education. The pristine wilderness of Kenai Fjords National Park is becoming increasingly popular as a destination for kayak campers. As visitor use increases, so does the interaction and potential for conflict between humans and wildlife. Black bears are abundant along the park's coastline, and park managers are interested in preventing negative interactions and protecting both bears and park visitors. A team of researchers is investigating how bears react to human presence in Kenai Fjords National Park. Steve Partridge, biologist with the U.S. Geological Survey, is one of the principal investigators in this study.
I think the original focus of it was to try to determine how people's activities in the fjords here affect bear behavior, and especially in places like these meadows that are really important, especially early on for bears. Typically they're losing weight right now as before the berries come out, so anything they can get in the way of green vegetation is good for them. So I think what we wanted to initially do is look at how people moving around in the meadows or approaching on kayaks or power boats affected these bears in the meadows. And so what we've done is found bears in these meadows, and depending on where the bears were, we might approach them on a power boat or we might try to get in on a kayak. But what we're doing is we're with laser rangefinders, we're trying to figure out when the bear notices the person's approach first, and so that would be a distance that we definitely want. And then the next distance we would want, at what point does the bear change its behavior from what it was doing previously, which is generally foraging, to maybe just staring at us now and not eating anymore. And then the probably most important one is, at what point does the bear decide now it wants to leave? It's uncomfortable, people are too close.
Researchers patrolled areas known to be frequented by black bears in early spring. When they sighted a bear, they began a systematic approach, recording the bear's behavior as they drew nearer and nearer.
Bear on the right's watching us too. 205. Yeah.
I'm not sure the exact numbers, but I want to say probably what we'd call the flushing distance, probably averaged right around 100 meters, which I think is fairly consistent.
Since black bears are so abundant in Kenai Fjords, park managers have made efforts to limit human and bear interactions by providing food storage lockers or lines for hanging food on the most popular beaches, and requiring bear-resistant food containers at other locations. Containers can be checked out at the park headquarters in Seward free of charge.
I don't think that this park has had any history of a few, I think, tent destruction cases, but nothing serious where any kind of, injury was involved, I don't believe. So I don't know, it wasn't a safety issue, I think. It's maybe just trying to look and see if we could, as this part of the bay becomes more popular, try to get in ahead of the curve and putting together some really good guidelines for kayakers to try to minimize any disturbance that people may have in these meadows.
The Nuka Bay region, where Partridge's team was working, is the more seldom visited part of Kenai Fjords National Park. It also contains more extensive meadow habitat than the more steep-sided fjords elsewhere in the park.
And these places provide some of the only opportunities they have, or the earliest opportunities they have, to get grass. And a lot of these places that are snow-free, at least back to a little ways. So there's always a little vegetation on the periphery that they can get. So it's definitely important in early season, and just good forage for them, I think. So
Another part of the study involved monitoring the most productive meadows with time-lapse video cameras for several days with no humans present, then establishing a camp in the meadow to see if the bear's foraging behavior was affected. This data has not been fully analyzed yet. In general, though, Partridge was surprised at how oblivious some bears can be to human presence.
Or there's some misconception about how much bears are paying attention to their surroundings. I think a lot of people think they're really tuned into everything and they can, they see at a mile or smell you at a mile. But I think a lot of times, since they're not typically worried about predators, they kind of, get in their own little world like the absent-minded professor. And boy, I've surprised a lot of bears, and as probably a lot of other people have, without trying it at all. So that was surprising that I think it's, I think sometimes they're not paying as much attention as you think they should be. You learn out here for sure how difficult it is to try to tease these things out. And I think probably, if nothing else, I think we'll get great data on the approaches. I think we can provide Kenai Fjords with some good information there. And I think a lot of people, if you just tell them that, hey, here's these meadows and there's going to be a lot of bears in there and it's a good area for them to feed, they'll probably avoid those areas because they don't want to disturb the animals. And a lot of times they just need the information. And so hopefully we'll be able to provide a lot of good basic information on how these bears are using these meadows.
In the end, park managers hope to use the information that Partridge and his co-investigators are gathering to minimize the potential for negative or harmful interactions between bears and park visitors, while maximizing the opportunities for bears to thrive and people to enjoy the wilderness of Kenai Fjords National Park.
I think, we still have a really good chance up here to preserve wild populations of bears, and there's a lot of areas I think that there's really good conservation efforts. So for a bear biologist, this is a dream come true, there's just a lot of stuff to do up here. So.
Welcome back. Small craft advisories, mostly due to seas here all along the coast, and that's probably a good thing because as that front moves in tomorrow, it could be a wave along there that scoots northward that may bring more significant winds than what I'm showing here of the 15 to 20 knot range. Inside waters, lighter winds 10 to 15 knots, mostly from a south or southwest direction. And then for Tuesday, the next storm coming up from off to the southeast, swinging northeastward, should bring some gale force winds into the south coast here, possibly as high as 40 knots. Tuesday afternoon, winds also coming up there across Dixon Entrance on into the southern inside waters. Easterlies could pick up, or east-northeast up to 20, and then Lincoln on Glacier Bay, those northerlies will be on the increase. And Prince William Sound tomorrow, southeast at about 15. Maybe 20 knots here for the North Gulf Coast, lighter and more westerly off to the west, and then northwest winds, maybe up to 25 knots there across Kamishak Bay, west 20 to 25 Barren Islands, mostly 20 knot westerlies here for Kodiak Island, and with low pressure, the low pressure center pulling up over Cook Inlet, light variable winds. And then those will turn northerly to northeasterly, but only up to about 15 knots here on Tuesday. North winds 15 to 20 knots. Looks like strongest winds possibly as high as 25 knots for the eastern and central North Gulf Coast for Tuesday. Prince William Sound northeasterlies increasing maybe up to 20 knots, and north to northeast 15 to 20 across Kodiak Island. Bristol Bay for tomorrow, northeast or northwest 15 knots, west 15, southwest of Kodiak Island. Small craft advisory northwesterlies here for the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, west at 20 there on the Pacific side. And then should see an increase in these winds for Tuesday, coming up to possibly 30 knots here for the western part of the peninsula, and west-northwest 25 knots for the areas south of the peninsula, but staying pretty light again for Tuesday here at about 15 knots. But swinging around to the northeast for both Bristol Bay and the area southwest of Kodiak Island. And out to the Aleutians, Looks like for tomorrow, high pressure bringing the winds down to a light variable state there for the Shimiat 2 area. Northwest 20, roughly Amchitka Island. Small craft advisories exiting AKwx, but hanging in around Atka and extending all the way over to just about Cape Sarachev. And then for Tuesday, gales. Northwest 35 knots for the Fox Islands. 25 knot winds diminishing for AKwx. Westerly as the ridge swings through the western Aleutians and back to the southwest. For the Bering Sea, kind of not much of a change going on here for the northern Bering Sea. North 25, freezing spray. St. Lawrence Island down the coastline here, dropping to about 20 knots, same direction there on the southern coast. Gales for the Pribilofs, that'll extend back up into the northern Bering Sea towards St. Matthew Island. And looks like the gales will hang on at least for a portion of Tuesday, especially early on, dropping back to 30 knots here for St. Matthew Island. Small craft advisories continue St. Lawrence Island and the areas Nunivak Island northward, becoming lighter and northeasterly at about 15, much the same as Bristol Bay there for Kuskokwim Bay on up to Nunivak Island. For the Arctic coast, east-northeast, 40 knots, heavy freezing spray for the entire east side. We've got gales going for northeasterlies, the central coast all the way down to Cape Lisburne, and then small craft advisories here with freezing and heavy freezing spray, all areas. For Sunday, or I'm sorry, the winds come down a little bit here on the east side for Tuesday, still carrying gales, but trending downward a little bit. So actually may bring it down to 20 knots, especially the eastern part of this zone. And for tonight, another front swings up to the southeast coast, and Arctic front pushing southward across the Bering Sea.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.